Have you ever wished to become someone nothing can touch? Someone who no longer flinches at criticism. Someone rejection cannot shake. Someone betrayal cannot break. Have you ever dreamed of the day the quiet ache inside you finally stops? That ache you carry even while smiling, even while telling everyone you are fine. Maybe you are tired of performing strength, tired of holding up an image that takes all your energy to maintain, when really all you wanted was permission to rest, even for a moment, from the exhausting effort of appearing untouchable. Let me tell you something few people will say out loud. As long as you keep trying to avoid pain, pain will keep controlling you. As long as you keep numbing yourself, protecting yourself, hiding yourself, you will remain a hostage to the words that wound you, the people who disappoint you, the silences that quietly hollow you out from the inside. This is not weakness. This is simply what happens to most people who were never taught another way. The only difference between you and the people who seem unbothered is that some of them have simply learned to hide it better. There is an old idea carried across generations of thinkers that we are not shaped by what happens to us, but by what we choose to become in response. That is where the real key is hidden. Becoming unbreakable is not about building a shield around yourself. It is not about becoming cold, distant, or indifferent to the world. It is about something far more difficult and far more freeing. It is about integration, about bringing into the light everything currently living quietly in your darkness. Because true strength was never the absence of pain. True strength is standing fully aware of who you are, even while you are bleeding. If you have come this far, it was not by accident. This is for you, the one tired of hurting over every small thing, the one who feels other people hold some invisible power over your peace that you cannot quite explain. I want to show you it does not have to stay this way. But first, you will need to face some truths that might sting a little. And perhaps, for the first time, this sting will be the very thing that finally sets you free. You believe what hurts you lives out there, in careless actions, in cruel words, in the people who left, in the betrayals you never saw coming. But here is a harder truth. None of that actually has power to hurt you, unless there is already an open wound underneath, quietly waiting. What actually hurts you is not what someone else did. It is what that moment awakens inside you. It is the story you have been silently telling yourself for years. It is the old ache nobody ever helped you look at directly. It is the emptiness you have been covering with pride, with performance, with a desperate need to look like someone who has everything together. The pain you feel from the outside world is often simply a mirror, reflecting back everything you have not yet made peace with on the inside. This is why some people can walk through devastating situations and remain steady, while others fall apart over a single offhand comment. It was never really about what happened. It is about where inside you it landed. And here is an uncomfortable truth hiding beneath all of this. You still suffer this much because, somewhere inside, you still believe you can control how the world treats you. You keep trying to be good enough, careful enough, agreeable enough, as if that could guarantee nobody ever hurts you again. But control was always an illusion, and as long as you hold on to it, you live in constant tension, trying to predict the unpredictable, trying to prevent the unpreventable. Do you want to stop suffering so much? Then stop working so hard to protect yourself from suffering. What you actually need is not more control. It is more awareness. As long as you believe other people must change before your pain can ease, you remain chained to their behavior. Your freedom begins the moment you understand something simple and enormous at the same time. Anything coming from outside you only has power if it finds something inside you already willing to echo it back. And this is exactly where the real battlefield lives. In the parts of yourself you have never fully looked at. What you refuse to see, refuse to understand, quietly ends up governing you anyway. The biggest lie you have ever believed is that you are fully in control of your own reactions. You are not. Not while you keep living on autopilot, reacting without knowing why, feeling without understanding where it came from, making choices you later quietly sabotage. Nothing you feel is random. The sudden anger, the sadness with no clear cause, the anxiety that arrives exactly when life finally seems to be going well. None of this appears from nowhere. These are messages, rising from parts of yourself that were long ago pushed aside, ignored, and quietly forgotten. You wonder why certain words destroy you completely, while other people barely notice the same words directed at them. It is because those particular words touch something inside you that is still tender, still unhealed, still waiting to be acknowledged. And it stays tender precisely because you have never truly faced it. You have only pushed it beneath the surface again and again, and now you keep tripping over the very thing you buried. Here is something worth sitting with quietly. We cannot change what we refuse to accept. Punishing yourself for your own pain does not free you from it. It only adds another layer of weight on top of it. And what have you been doing most of this time? Judging yourself, silencing yourself, pretending the ache simply is not there. As if pretending could ever be the same thing as healing. The truth is, whatever you keep ignoring inside yourself does not disappear. It simply finds new, more disguised ways to surface. In relationships you keep repeating without understanding why. In patterns of self-sabotage you cannot seem to break. In a strange anxiety that appears exactly when everything on the surface looks fine. This is not bad luck following you around. This is the unattended part of you, quietly trying to get your attention. And you keep telling it to wait. Do you want to stop being hurt so easily? Then stop running from what already lives inside you. Because the more energy you spend protecting yourself from outside pain, the more vulnerable you actually become to the pain already living within. There is a way through this. It is not in building better defenses. It is in finally turning around and looking directly at what you have been avoiding. Becoming unbreakable is not an act of resistance. It is an act of deep, honest self-knowledge. Most people believe the only way to avoid getting hurt is to close themselves off completely. They build walls. They wear masks. They construct an armor of composure, and they insist, "Nothing gets to me anymore." But underneath that armor, they are still quietly bleeding, still slowly corroding from the inside. Because the problem was never about feeling too much. The problem is not knowing what you are feeling or why, and that confusion only happens to people who have not yet taken the time to truly know themselves. The part of you hiding behind that composed, unshakable performance is not actually asking to be hidden. It is quietly asking to be seen. Becoming emotionally strong has nothing to do with being cold. It has nothing to do with avoiding conflict, dismissing pain, or pretending indifference. It has everything to do with integration, with accepting, and finally bringing into the light everything you have kept buried in the dark for far too long. You do not become unbreakable by placing a wall between yourself and the world. You become unbreakable the moment nothing left outside you can touch what you have already made peace with on the inside. When you integrate your fears, your flaws, your quiet insecurities, you stop reacting to everything around you. You begin, instead, to choose your responses. You stop being an emotional puppet pulled by other people's actions. And that, more than anything else, is real freedom. This process is not about becoming a more perfect version of yourself. It is about becoming whole, not what others expected you to be, not the version you built simply to be accepted, but whatever quietly emerges when you finally let your light and your shadow sit in the same room together. Here is the part almost nobody tells you clearly. The more you run from pain, the more relentlessly it follows you. The more you try to remain unaffected, the more fragile you secretly become. But when you finally face your own wounds, when you accept every part of yourself, the parts you are proud of and the parts you would rather nobody ever see, nothing from the outside retains the power to unmake you. This path, however, requires real courage. Courage to look inward, honestly. Courage to set down the mask you have worn for so long you almost forgot it was a mask at all. Courage to actually feel instead of simply managing what you feel from a careful distance. Because it is precisely inside the pain that the key to real transformation is hidden. You learned long ago to treat pain as something shameful. Somewhere along the way, you absorbed the idea that crying was weakness, that feeling deeply made you fragile, that suffering needed to be hidden quickly and quietly. So you learned to run, to distract, to deny. But the more you flee from suffering, the more persistently it follows you, and worse, it changes shape as it does. It disguises itself as anxiety, as sudden anger, as apathy, boredom, or self-destructive impulses whose origin you cannot even trace. Ignored pain does not simply vanish. It digs quiet tunnels beneath the surface of your life, until one day, without warning, something finally gives way. There is a gentler way to understand suffering than the one you were taught. Pain is not your enemy. It is closer to a messenger, an alarm sounding from the parts of you that have gone unheard for too long. It is one of the few languages your deepest self has left to get your attention, when every quieter signal has already been ignored. Imagine sadness as a quiet, patient visitor standing at your door. Most of us try to close the door quickly, hoping she will simply go away. But what if, instead, you let her in, offered her a seat, sat with her for a while, and actually listened to what she came to say? Instead, most of us do the opposite. We silence ourselves, distract ourselves, stay endlessly busy, specifically so we never have to sit still long enough to hear what the pain is actually trying to show us. The truth is, Suffering often hurts as much as it does because some part of you is still at war with itself. One part of you is quietly calling for growth. Another part, comfortable and afraid, is doing everything it can to keep things exactly as they are. And it is in that exact friction that pain is born. Because real change hurts. Real growth hurts. Releasing an old belief, cutting away something familiar but no longer serving you. All of it is a kind of quiet grief. A small internal death followed eventually by a rebirth. But it is precisely inside that space of breaking down that something new becomes possible. When everything certain in you finally crumbles, when pain strips away the performance, you can finally see who you actually are, without the layers of protection, without the mask, without the exhausting effort of managing how you appear. And at that exact point, suffering becomes something closer to sacred, because it brings you finally face to face with the only thing capable of setting you free. Pain is not proof that something has failed. It is simply part of the process. It is not the end of your road. It is the beginning of the long walk back toward yourself. Most people, understandably, turn back before crossing that difficult stretch. They distract themselves. They return quickly to the comfortable surface. But you have come this far, which likely means some part of you is finally ready to keep walking. Very few people find the courage to begin this kind of inward journey. Even fewer find the courage to actually finish it, because this path offers no comfort, no guarantees, no protection for the version of yourself built simply to survive. It asks you instead to slowly unlearn who you believed yourself to be. And that hurts more deeply than almost any external rejection ever could, because you begin to realize that much of what once defined you was simply a performance built for survival. You are not your achievements. You are not your old wounds. You are not the careful image you constructed to be loved, respected, or approved of. All of that was simply armor built at a time when you needed it. But surviving was never the same thing as truly living. This deeper call, the one asking you to grow beyond mere survival, is what eventually pushes everything repressed, hidden, and quietly distorted back up toward the surface. It requires, eventually, letting go of the mask you built for the comfort of everyone around you. And underneath that mask, you slowly begin to discover what was always actually there. This is where you begin to become unbreakable. Not because nothing affects you anymore, but because you have already walked through the fire. You have faced your own fears directly. You have looked into your own shame, your own neediness, your own old anger, and said quietly, I see you now, and you no longer control me. It is this clarity, this honest awareness of your own darkness, that finally gives you a strength that no longer depends on approval, recognition, or control. You no longer need everyone to love you. You no longer need to win every disagreement. You no longer need to perform strength because you finally know with quiet certainty who you actually are, and nobody can take that away from you now. Real emotional strength was never a shell. It is a center. It is every part of you, finally gathered into one steady point of awareness that remains calm. Even in the middle of a storm, you may still feel pain, but it no longer breaks you. You may still be hurt, but you no longer lose yourself inside it. because you have stopped simply reacting and finally become whole. This depth, however, comes with a quiet cost. Sometimes loneliness. Not because you will truly be alone, but because fewer people are able to walk this particular road with you. Most remain comfortable on the surface, still wearing their own masks, still afraid to feel too deeply. When you begin to free yourself, you may naturally drift from certain people. This is not rejection. It is simply growth. You do not distance yourself out of pride. You distance yourself because you no longer fit inside the places you once hid. Now that you have come this far, one thing needs to be said clearly. Nothing will fully protect you from outside pain if you remain unaware of what is happening inside you. Harsh words will still sting. Rejection will still ache. Loss will still knock you down, again and again, until you finally wake up. And waking up is not some single dramatic moment. It is a daily choice. It is looking inward, even when it is uncomfortable. It is taking responsibility for what you feel without endlessly blaming others or your past or your circumstances. There is a simple, powerful truth worth remembering. What you resist tends to persist. What you finally accept begins slowly to transform. You have spent so long resisting the fear of not being enough, resisting the ache of rejection, resisting the quiet anguish of feeling unseen. And what did that resistance actually give you? You hid. You silenced yourself. You tried endlessly to control everything around you. You tried to appear perfect. You tried to appear unshakable. And all of that effort has led you here. Tired of fighting the world, and quietly tired of fighting yourself. But now you know something important. True emotional strength was never about hardness. It is about clarity. It is not about building better armor. It is about expanding your own awareness. Because once you understand your own triggers, your own patterns, your own unhealed places, the actions of others slowly lose their power to destroy you. You still feel deeply, but you no longer drown in it. You still suffer sometimes, but you no longer lose yourself inside the suffering. And that changes everything. What actually protects you was never distance from life. It was diving fully into it. Those who remain only on the surface get shaken by every small wave that passes. Those willing to go deeper eventually find something else entirely down there. Stillness, steadiness, and a quiet kind of strength. That is where you are slowly making your way toward. And when you finally begin living from that place, integrated, present, at peace with your own depths, the world may still try to knock you down, but it will no longer find anywhere left to strike. If something in this reached you today, sit with it for a moment before you move on. Real transformation rarely happens in a single sitting. It happens slowly, one honest look inward at a time. You do not need to become untouchable by pretending nothing hurts. You become unbreakable by finally, gently turning toward everything you have spent years turning away from.